Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chicago's iconic Harris Theater, and welcome to Twin Global 2019.
Yeah.
Harold O'Neill, everyone. I don't think you understand what just hit you, what just walked out on stage. Harold, we met in London, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago through Peter Sims.
That's about right.
And I was blown away at that point because when you walked up, first of all, I didn't know you were a hip-hop dancer, a martial artist, a writer, composer, that is an example, a pianist, and somehow this all works. And I thought, what the heck is this going to be? And then he started playing, and I heard Debussy, I heard Rachmaninoff, I heard Harold O'Neill. So tell us for a second, this show, this program, this event, this experience is about vision.
Yeah.
From where did you get your vision for the music that you perform?
Well, for me, it started when I was about this high, and it's about storytelling. I was a big fan of Tom and Jerry, Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny.
All the violent cartoons.
All of the violent cartoons, yeah. And especially the ones where they couldn't talk. So it's like you get to see all this violence happening, but the person can't say anything about it, and it's just, why is it happening? And it just keeps happening. So Tom and Jerry, perfect place for me to start, because that was where I saw storytelling, in particular, happening through music, and seeing music be the script, seeing music being the vehicle that tells a story. So yeah, it started with Tom and Jerry.
Great. So later this afternoon, we're to start our discussion about, oh yeah, thanks, yeah. We need a drummer out here for a rim shot. Great, thanks. You're going to hear a lot of that. Later this afternoon, we're going to bring Moran Cerf and Patricia Slaruta out to talk about the science of perception. Mm-hmm. Because vision, of course, starts with the data that hit us. How does perception relate to music?
Sure. So sound is vibration, right? And vibration is sound. Vibration is movement. So that means music is movement. Music is vibration. It's a physical movement. There are many beliefs that state that the universe, the known universe, is comprised of everything is a series of vibrations. So if that's true, that means music is all around us. Music is everywhere. And it comes to life through the meanings we make of what we perceive. So, to go even further, when I was young, right, I would hear music, and I was always very sensitive. I was very sensitive to the space and distances between notes, whether it was very close, and I could feel, and I would see, and then when it gets far, and then you have these different textures happening.
And you do a lot of layering in your music as you listen to it. Even
Yeah.
the transitions have multiple levels that move from one to the next. So there's
That's
movement
right.
in your dance and your music and your expression and also your syntax, I would say. Yeah. So we're going to hear a little bit more from you later on, Harold. Sure. But before you go, what's next for you? I know there's something big you can't quite talk about because then I'd be arrested or fined or something.
Yeah, not
so
yet.
What's next?
So I have a special group of friends. And these special group of friends do very special things with their special group of friends. And they're working on something very special, and they invited me along to help them in a very special way.
Are we talking about Scientology here, or what's going on? Is this? I'm sorry to our
Sounds
TV
like you've
land
heard this
folks.
spiel before, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, this very special project, and my life story played a role in making this project happen. So it's all I could say about it for now.
And it might be launching somewhere next year in places that we can actually go to
not
see
today,
it. Yeah,
not
great.
tomorrow, not the next day, not next week, not next month.
Great.
On and on, okay? But probably sometime next year. Now, this is being recorded and I believe even live streamed, so I really can't say anything. But if you want to talk to me about it, I may say something special to you about it.
And I want you to remember next year when you see this special thing, you saw it here first. Thanks, Harold O'Neill.
Thank you.
That was great. I think you can see why I bought him a drink the first time we met. So it's great to have everyone here, and everyone that's joining us on the live stream. I wish you could be here in person. Before we get started, and I want you to pay attention because you all have a job. You have different jobs, but you have a job, and you can't do the job without paying attention to the next question. The first two questions. The question number one is, how many of you have been to at least one of these global experiences before? All right, hold your hand up for a second. Now, all the other people, presumably, are either not paying attention or pissed, and I mean that in the American way, are the new ones. So you guys put your hands down. The new ones, raise your hand. Great. Now, the old ones, no offense, are supposed to look at the new ones and bring them in. Be aggressive, like you're trying to sell them something. Because we are trying to sell them something, all right? We're trying to sell them a feeling. We're trying to sell them an experience. We're trying to sell them more than anything else a community. Because if the community here does not work, everything else you can find on YouTube. And I'm quite serious about that. Unless we create connection and emotional trust, trust is the most untalked about ingredient of innovation, entrepreneurship, creating the future that we have. And that is because if I have a crazy idea and I come to you, which I have all the time, and I come to you and you've never met me, what do you think about me? Yeah, sure, there you go. Now, on the other hand, if we worked on an oil rig in the North Sea for 3 years and we had each other's backs, and I come to you and I say, that same crazy idea, you say, Rob, that's nuts. But I know you're not nuts. Let's have lunch and talk about it. By the way, that is why you're here. It's to be inspired, it's to learn, it's to discover, it's to drive toward impact, but it's to build relationships of community. And by the way, when you build that social capital beyond your specific industry, beyond the space in which you inhabit every day, you have more power. You have more power to envision and to create the future in which we will all live. And that, my friends, is why we are here. Community, discovery, synchronicity, and impact. So most of all, while you're here these 3 days, be present. This is incredibly difficult. We are being pulled in more directions than exist in the Cartesian space. And every moment, the flashing lights are beckoning us to another super important meeting or a call to prepare for the meeting. I want you to cancel it. It's going to be hard the first time, but I tell you, once you shoot that first person, the rest are easy. I want you to shoot out that email about that critical meeting about the big M&A thing that's launching next week and just cancel it. I want you to email the White House and say you don't have time for golf at Mar-a-Lago. You're canceling it. You're sticking around here to be in the moment, to be in this community. So a big thanks to so many people, of course, not only our directors here, our board, but also co-founders of Twin Global. And so many other co-founders here, Mark Karasek, Blythe McGarvey, Scott and Margie Philstrip, all here from the beginning. And I mean 2003. And they're still here. Apparently, they got a lot of time on their hands. Toby Redshaw, you'll hear from later. So many of you are co-founders, and that's why you're here. Big thanks, of course, to IBM. You're going to hear more from them. They couldn't have been a better partner. There are all these horror stories about sponsors coming in and saying, we need the corporate communication slides here, and we need this thing here, we need a great big look. None of that. They said, we trust you. We want the best experience for everyone, and we're here to support it. And thanks to my own firm, my colleagues, my friends, Clario, who've put extraordinary effort into making this happen. And I do mean that. Of course, to Exelon and Griffith. Exelon and Griffith came in and not only have supported this program, but they've also supported challenge sessions this morning where we were addressing issues like the future of food and trust in our food system, or the distribution of energy and how distributed energy and accessibility will change over the next few decades and how we make it work for everyone. And all of our sponsors listed up here who've supported and made this experience possible. And of course, our civic partners, it couldn't have been a better place to work than the Harris Theater. Just FYI, if you do events, as many of you do, Harris Theater is a fantastic place to work. And the team is This is a team of true professionals. Council on Global Affairs will host us tomorrow afternoon. The Development Partner Institute, which grew out of our initiatives years ago and is now an independent authority transforming the global mining industry to make it all work for humanity. And all the other partners that are with us today and over the next few days. Thank you to our team sponsors and others who bring groups of your colleagues together. Because, of course, when it's just one of you and you show up at this thing and you hear from this crazy person and you walk back to the office and say, I just heard from this crazy person and isn't it fantastic? We should do that. And what do they look at you like? You're a Martian. No offense to Martians in the audience. By bringing others from your community into the house and helping them hear it here directly, we enhance your ability to move and to change. All these challenge sessions, earlier today at the Merchandise Mart, 35 people in each, working for 6 hours on topics that you see up here. And now we've got the momentum coming from those experiences to start sharing very broadly. So our theme this year is vision. Why vision? Well, I think it's a misunderstood concept. I think we take for granted the things that sit in front of us are the things that we see. And nothing could be further from the truth, both from a business or political or nonprofit or government, military example, but also from a scientific perspective, as we'll hear more later on this afternoon. But also then, even the notion of using vision, of creating it, of manifesting it. These are related but different constructs. And how often do we as humans sit around and wait for that person with vision to come and build a vision for our company? Gosh, why can't we find a visionary leader? Well, guess what? You can't hire Steve Jobs. Number one, you couldn't when he was alive, and number two, he's dead. So you have to find your way to vision. You have to find what works for your organization, and it will be different in different environments. And it's not only about creativity, it certainly is about that, but it's also about the ability to manifest, to turn a brilliant vision, or a vision usually, as you'll hear from Safi Bakal later this afternoon, that looks completely unlikely to succeed from the beginning, and by the way, it probably is, though some of them percolate up and change the world. So how do you create the vision that's right for your mission objectives, that's right for the world? And how do you then transition them into, and here's the key for all of us, making it actually happen? While you experience Twin Global over the next few days, I'd like you to keep those two questions in mind. How do we create vision? What is it? How does it work? And how do we make it manifest? They're not the same things. Now, I would propose that for all the companies and organizations in the room, you don't have to be a for-profit to need vision. We can't wait for the visionary leader to solve our problems. We have to turn vision into a corporate capability, into an organizational capability. I won't go into detail here, but there are three components of this. Number one is sensing. Where are you gathering the data and information about what's going on in the universe? Right here is one example. These are very different data than you normally achieve or access during your normal course of life. Where are you going to find out what's going on? And then, how do those data move to the right people to make decisions and move things forward? Second aspect of vision is foresight. Where might the world go? Not where will it go. I'm not talking about predicting. I'm talking about generating effective foresight so we can be strategically opportunistic. This is our objective, to be strategically opportunistic, to therefore, in the longer run, achieve the vision, the mission that we aspire to achieve. And finally, the third piece, projection. What do we want to create in the future? What do we want to manifest? How does it look? How might it work? It might be actually quite different once you get there in the future, but how do you, from where you are right now, envision that thing you desire to create? Think Walt Disney envisioning Disneyland. How do you create your Disneyland and make it happen in the world? That's projection. Now, over the next 3 days, these components come together in a slightly different way. The first day today, we're going to talk about the science of perception, the future of truth. What does truth even mean? That's clearly shifting. And then projecting to the future. What is this notion of projecting visions that aren't already obvious? Projecting visions that seem crazy in the beginning, or blowing up reality, as we'll hear from Pablos Holman and Katia Caprelli. Thanks so much for being here. Sitting in the first row, good students you are. And then finally on the third day, we'll talk about purpose. how does vision relate to purpose? How does purpose help us to create larger vision and have the fortitude necessary to achieve it? This is where we're going over the next 3 days. This is the arc of our story, and many of you will help us achieve it. Back to this notion of canceling it. This fellow, Socrates, you might recognize him. This is a sort of not an actual representation, by the way. Socrates was famous for stopping dead in his tracks. He would often, oddly, many people reported this, stop dead in his tracks and stand, usually standing oddly. Apparently, he was thinking a lot. I mean, you don't define the entire canon of Western philosophy by pre-Socratic and Socratic, by not thinking a lot. And he would, on many occasions, walk to a moment and stop and think and nearly appear catatonic. His focus was so profound. In fact, Xenophon, one of his students and reporters about the life of Socrates, because he never wrote anything down and didn't really want to share, Xenophon relayed an extraordinary story from the Peloponnesian Wars. Many people don't know this, but Socrates was a decorated soldier. He saved Alcibiades twice in battle, which is another ironic point of history. But in any case, Xenophon reports that at one point, while the Athenians are marching toward their next engagement, all of a sudden Socrates, who was known for this behavior, stopped. And he stood there for hours, and everyone passed him by. And everybody knew to leave Socrates alone because he was thinking. And eventually he caught up and, killed some people and helped out. I want you to imagine this, because in this day and age where everyone is fighting for our attention, how can we stop like Socrates and imagine and think and find the place inside? The purpose of education is to learn to navigate imagination. I'm not going to go into detail about this. This is my belief. This is my notion. You might argue with it. I hope you do. Let's have a conversation another time. But just suffice it to say that everything we do and see is an imaginative space. And so learning to navigate what's real or not, what could be created, what we will commit to, is actually what starts from the moment we are born to the moment we pass on, and perhaps beyond that. A quick note about the guide box you received. This is our program, but really it's a gift. David Rumsey of Stanford, who is perhaps the greatest old map collector in the world, amassed an extraordinary collection of old maps and related paraphernalia and donated it to Stanford. His collection and he himself are so extraordinary, Stanford took the unusual act of not only accepting his gift and naming it for him, but also making him the executive director of the collection. This says a lot about his acumen and his vision. David, thanks to Brian Campen for introducing us, offered for us to use any image throughout Twin Global in any way we wanted from his collection. And we're sharing just a few of these. I urge you to go on the website and get lost for hours. It's truly extraordinary. Our anchor image, this one, is a star chart, a star map from the late 17th century Holland. And it is based on scientific position of the heavens. But as you might notice, there are a few things up on the screen that you don't notice when you look up in the sky. But yet, these are our beliefs. These are constructs we've created to build stories, to build meaning within our world beyond. So I hope you enjoy. The world has transitioned in the way we think. This one from the guide box shows the Cartesian, Ptolemaic, Brachian, and of course the Copernican solar system. This one is from a group called the Muggletonians. I'd never heard of them before, but this was a small Christian sect that started in the 17th century, and by the mid-19th century, they died out late 19th century. They believed a number of interesting things like the solar system was Earth-centric. And so they had visuals and etchings that they would exchange privately in back rooms. It was a secret society. And this extraordinary visual shows the world according to the Holy Scripture. And this, from that earlier book I shared, is my favorite image from the whole collection. This is the sun smiling at us knowingly as we attempt to understand what lies beyond. As a result of this image, it inspired me to write a poem at the end of the guide box. You can take it for what it is, but the notion of it is, as we look across the heavens and imagine ourselves colonizing the moon and colonizing Mars and finally going physically beyond, the sun can ask us, are you really sure that's what you want to do? And if so, how are you going to navigate? If so, how are you going to go beyond terrarium angels, your space? If so, wander where you will, though you must improvise, synthesize warmth and content of elsewhere home, for which you'll require all your mystical, magisterial, presumptuous powers. So with this, I'd like to point out a gift. Another gift you received on the way in, this is the coin. Now, all of our longtime Twinians know this tradition, which we adopted from the United States military, thanks to Admiral Jim Stavridis. This is a challenge coin. I won't describe the tradition to you. Many of you know it. If you don't, look it up on Wikipedia. It's called a challenge coin, and it is an expression of thanks for you joining us here and spending your precious time. And it's an expression of commitment to the community and being together. Each year, we ask a different artist, architect, designer to design the coin for us. I give them significant artistic license. I say it has to be a coin, approximate form factor. It has to be not too expensive because I'm paying for it or you're paying for it. And it has to have something to do with our program. So your coin this year is a one-way trip from Earth to Mars for Twin Global 2119. Now, I want you to note before you cash this subway token in, it is a one-way ticket. Think about that. And I would like to welcome to stage my very good friend and an extraordinarily talented artist, a full-time artist for NASA who envisioned this lovely token, Mr. David Delgado.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks so much for being here, David.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure.
This is a piece of art, and it's so exciting. I've been carrying it around for the past week and a half, staring at it from time to time. I gave a couple to my daughters, and my oldest said correctly, well, how do I get back? And I said, yeah, well, there you go. So tell us a little bit about this piece of art.
So what you're looking at is a transit token to Mars. You know, as you mentioned, it's only one way. You're going to have to figure out how to get back on your own or deal with that when you're there. When you get to the actual departure station, you're going to have to leave that coin at the launch pad because none of our metals from Earth are allowed to actually be taken up there.
Now why is that?
Well, actually, there's a real practical reason is we try to, reduce the weight as much as possible.
Right.
But, that's the main reason. But eventually, we want to try to, keep things here.
Interesting. Now, you have to tell me, I forgot to ask, what does EDL mean?
So EDL is a really interesting acronym that stands for Entry, Descent, and Landing. And that's an acronym that's actually used now, when people are landing rovers on Mars, for example. So if you have ever seen pictures of like engineers jumping up and down after there's been a rover landing, that is the Entry, Descent, and Landing team. And that will continue to happen with people. And so this token is good for one EDL.
Great. Well, I can tell you, EDL is exactly how I'm going to feel at the end of this whole program this week. Right. So you've also brought some other images for us to share some of your work. And you and I met through Yarrow Craner in Montana at Hatch. Yep. And I have to admit, I thought, oh my gosh, he's an artist for NASA. He's doing some stuff with high school kids. And he is, by the way, and that's great. Love high school kids.
Yep. I loved your quote on imagination, actually.
Thank you.
For education.
Thank you, yeah. And that's what you do.
Yes.
That's what you do, to engage the public. But I have to say, when you started to present your work, I was absolutely blown away by it. It's insightful and compelling and also artistic.
Oh, thank you.
Let's share one. Tell us a little bit about this one.
Okay, great. So what you're looking at is a few years ago, the European Space Agency was going to land on a comet. And NASA...
And it missed and it dropped in the middle of New York?
Well, actually, so we didn't know yet, right? So this was months before we had even seen the comet. So we had the great advantage of not knowing what it looked like, right? Wow. And so the Jet Propulsion Lab at NASA asked us to do something that would draw people's attention to comets. And what we ended up doing was this, and creating a sculpture without any signage, without any description of what you're looking at, and just got people to ask questions. And from the notion of what you were talking about, navigating imagination.
Right.
That's what we were trying to do, is get people to ask questions of what is this? What could it be? With, going in the direction of what is it,
Was anyone concerned there might be aliens involved in this thing? I mean, it's kind of
Well,
an eerie...
we'd get people like this showing up, which is kind of funny, People
She
would
wasn't part of your
gravitate,
program?
dance, take their, what's
She
that?
wasn't part of your program? That
No,
just
she was,
happened?
people would just show up. Wedding parties, dancers. So it attracted a lot of things. And our whole goal was really to create an experience that got people to ask a lot of questions around the notion of what a comet is, but also to create an experience that people would remember. So that would drive their curiosity to go find out more. And that's really what we're trying to do, is expand imagination around certain areas so that it drives curiosity, so that they can navigate that into areas of learning. And our approach, instead of trying to teach people, is to try to show them the way through something beautiful or something poetic.
And get them to ask questions, very Socratic of you.
Yeah.
I'd like to go to the next visual here, and this is the one that really struck me.
Yeah.
The idea behind, tell us the idea behind this.
So another thing is sometimes when you can't see things, you just don't think they're there. And NASA has 19 Earth science satellites that are constantly orbiting Earth. But you can't see them, right? So you look up at the sky. Sometimes if you know where to look, you might be able to see the space station. But our whole intent was to use a different, our dominant sense is vision. So kind of use a different sense, which is just our hearing, and to create a space where we could track all of the different satellites that are flying overhead. And we gave each one of them a sound, their own unique sound.
Oh, so each of these sounds is assigned to a specific satellite.
That's right.
But you had to somehow ensure that they would not sound cacophonous together, that there'd be some harmony or...
That's right, yeah, and that's when it comes in really handy to work with a sound artist and composer. And so what you're listening to now is that composition, but it's actually driven by the live position of the satellites as they move overhead.
Wow, that's phenomenal. Last one. What are these?
These are travel posters to worlds that actually exist out in the universe. In the past 20 years, there have been thousands and thousands and thousands of planets discovered around other stars. And, we were asked to do something to get people, typical question, get people to think about exoplanets, they're called. And our approach was, rather than talk about all the details of how they're found or all the details of what scientists think they could be, of just go straight to the aspect of what it would be like to be there.
That's great.
And allow people to kind of imagine being in this place and understand only one thing about it.
Great. So the grass is always redder on the other side. Maybe you can bring some of these to our great Adler Planetarium here. I think Michelle, the CEO, might be here with us tonight. But thank you so much for
thank you very
visiting
much.
us. And this is a true gift.
Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.